Hi, it's Mike Stevenson here. So, in the video today, we're going to have a quick look at Bubble, which is a low code application development platform. And what we want to be able to do is it's basically similar to things like a Canvas Power App in a way, but I've been introduced to it recently, and it's quite fun actually, and quite easy way to just play around building an app. What I want to do though is be able to call an API that I've exposed on Azure API Management because I think that then opens up some opportunities to do other stuff. So what I've done in my Azure over here, I've got my API management. I've got a whole bunch of APIs, but the one I'm interested in is my Bubble demo. So I've got two APIs that I'm going to use in two videos. The one we're looking at today is get list of skills. So I can call this API. I don't have any parameters or anything. It's just a basic HTTP GET, and I'm going to just show an example here. So I'm going to make a call to it, and I'm going to get back an array or a JSON object with a skills property, which has an array of objects, which are the different skills that you might have. So we've got football, boxing, etc. And what I want to do is build a page in my Bubble app that would just display this list of skills. So what we do over here, this is bubble.io is the platform. We're building an app, and I've got a page here that I've put inside my app. So you can see up at the top, I've got a page called Get Skill List. And there's a couple of things I'm going to do. So basically, the page itself, title, text box. The bit we're looking at is this group or repeating group here. And this is where what I want to have happen is the page will load and it'll just display the list of skills. So what I need to do, the first thing is to go into the plugins, and we add a plugin called API Connector. So you'd have to go into the marketplace and you would see API Connector and you would install that plugin. Now, once I've got the plugin, then I would go and add an API and I would choose, so I'd give it a name, I would set some authentication for it. I can add some headers and stuff, and then I basically add API calls here. So I'm going to add a call, and then I would set like the URL, what's the data type, and a few things like that. And basically, it's like in the back end of Bubble, you're building a proxy to your API. So I'm going to show the one I've set up, and you're going to see the key in a minute for my API. So I'm going to change that key when we're done on the video. But you can see here I've got my API test. I've got a private key in the header, so I'm going to set the Azure API Management subscription key, and I'm just going to supply a value here. So what Bubble's going to do is it'll call the Bubble backend, and then in the Bubble backend it'll call on, when I get it to use my API, it'll call on to API management and get the data back. Now what I did in the API, because it's just a test one, just to show over here, I've just basically put a response policy where I'm just going to return this data. Now, once I'm in APIM, this opens up the Azure ecosystem, so I could plug into a logic app, a function app, and do a lot of different scenarios. But really, for today, I just want to show that I can call from Bubble out to API management. So what I need to do next is I add some operations, and if we have a look at the get skill list one here, so what you do is you go in, you add a name, so and then you give it the URL. So I've got my my Bubble skills URL, and the first bit to note is this use as. So use as data or use as action is a Bubble specific thing, where if you're going to use it as data, you can just point an element at it and it'll just read the data, whereas user's action would be when you want to respond to to like a button click like we'll do in the next video. So for this demo we're going to use it as data. There's a type of JSON is going to be the response, and that's kind of the configuration for this basic get operation. Now what you would do next is you'd initialize the call, and that's basically going to make an example call to your API. And you can see it's kind of interpreting the response back here, so we can see the raw data that came back. And I'm just saying, look, this is an array get skills, and it's kind of working a lot of this out for me. It knows these are text, and stuff. So that's the I must have misspelled golf as gold there. Not to worry. So it's interpreting the data that comes back, so it knows things like the properties to expect. Now, what I need to do on my form over here, so this page is really going to load up, and it's just going to make a query of that API. So in my there's a couple of things to note. So you can do workflows, which we'll look at in another video. But for this demo, I don't need that today. But in the next video, you'll see how we use a workflow to respond to a button click. But what I'm going to do here is, if I double click on this this repeating group, which is this bit down here, so I've just dragged one of them like that into the form. Let me just get rid of that repeating group there. So I've got a repeating group over here, and you can see the properties are, that's its name, group skill list. And I've got type of content, so I've linked it to be my skills from my group skill list. And what I do is in the data source, so if I click on that, you can see we can because it's going to be a data element, I can look up the get skill list from the API I've created, because I used that I used it as data rather than action, so it would show up in this list here. So that basically was all you need to do to link that list to that API. And then what I would do is I've dragged a text box into my repeating groups. You can see you've got the rows here. And on my text box, I've basically said, using these properties here, the current cell's name. So you can see here you can insert dynamic data, and you can choose a bunch of stuff here. And I've said, so it's basically you choose the current skill, and then you choose the ID or the name and stuff like that. So if I'll just tidy that up. So it should be better. Right, so that's just good there. So the app automatically saves as you're building it. So that's really all the code, the development I needed to do was to drag the group in, drag the text box into the group, link it to that API I've created in the back end. And then if we just preview my app now, which will, in fact, I'm just going to, it's on the other screen, so I'm just going to pop it up here. As you can see, if I've previewed, it loaded the page up, it called out to my API, and here's the list of skills that came back, and obviously that you can do a bit of work to make the form look prettier and stuff like that. And if we have a look, so if we run it again, for example, we have a look in the developer console, you can see the page loads up, and I think if I remember right, it's actually this one here, so this do API call from server. So this is where, when the page loads, the Bubble app basically calls this do API call from server. It'll pass in any data that you're going to kind of tell it to do. And then this is where my response comes back, and you can see if we scroll along, this JSON response includes the data that I returned, and then it just basically gets bound to the form. So that, really quick way of getting set up to do the display the list of skills. So that shows how easy it is to get data from an API and just display it on the page. So that should make it really cool to build some interesting Bubble apps there.